Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Who we got. Welcome Facebook. Welcome LinkedIn. Welcome TikTok. We're about ready to welcome Instagram. Since it gives me the thumbs up. There you go. Welcome to Instagram. Welcome YouTube. Welcome everybody. We're on 5 channels now. This is awesome. I'm pretty excited about this. So this morning we are talking about, first off, my name is Brenda Neckbottle. I am a tenured HR professional, people affectionately referred to as the Grim Reaper. And what I do is I actually work with leaders to help them streamline their operations, really more importantly though, help them build high performing teams and how to actually slice through the drama in record time so that way they can grow and scale their business. And I talk a lot about the challenges of dealing with difficult people. I talk a lot about what it takes to build a high performing team. A friend of mine and I wrote a book. Sorry, he's a retired SEAL. His name is William Branham. He's on here, and he's not with me today live, but he's on the web. You can look him up. You can find him. It's pretty easy to find. And we wrote a book that's called Mission Ready. And what we talk about is really helping leaders. So Will talks about his principles of leadership, and then I come in behind and I start talking about all the people dynamics that are going to happen once you start putting those principles in place. So he talks about his principles, I talk about my principles, and we have a really good time doing it. So today, though, we are talking about really how leaders can influence the team dynamics in a positive way. And why is this important? Well, to be honest with you, some of the best leaders I have ever worked for, some of the best bosses I've ever worked for, have been extremely successful at doing this. And it's a critical skill. It really is. If you want your team to be everything that you imagine it to be, this is what you actually have to do. And one of the most important things that you have to do is actually, you know what? Before you can get to the first thing that we're talking about, I'm going to do like a 1 and a 1A. So there's a 2-part to 1. So the first thing is that you have to establish what your core principles are. You have to establish what your core values are. If you don't establish that, you are going to struggle because you're not leading by principles, you're leading by preferences. And you cannot lead by preferences because preferences are subjective. They change on a regular basis, depending on the direction of the wind and how people are feeling. And so when you're talking about core principles, core values, you're talking about the things that you put into place that you measure every action up against and along with or next to. And I'll give you an example. One of my favorite bosses had this amazing ability to actually, like, when somebody would come up and say, hey, listen, I've got a recommendation for this, or I have a suggestion about this. And the very first thing that he would ask before he would even listen to what they had to say is, and we worked for a car dealership, and he would say, is this going to help us sell more cars? And that was the value to which everything was measured right there. And if the answer was no, he would very politely say, then it's not worth us pursuing. If it is going to help us sell more cars, then it's going to help us reach our number one business objective. Now, so that was our business objective. Then we also had core values that we aligned every decision up against. And one of the things, and this is something that I've adopted even in my own businesses, because I have multiple businesses, I will ask the question, is this the right thing to do? Because our number one core value is integrity. And if we are here helping a customer or helping a client, then we want to make sure that everything that we're doing is aligning with the company's, with our integrity. If it's not the right thing to do for the customer, or even sometimes for the business, then it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Sometimes we have to weigh one over the other. But if we're talking about solving a customer's problem, is it the right thing to do for the customer? If the answer is yes, then that's the direction that we go in. If it's the right thing to do for the employee, then the answer is yes, and that's the direction that we go in. If it's, yes, as it relates to the company, is it the right thing to do for the future of our business? Is it the right thing to do as we move forward? Then yes, it is. That is the direction that we're going in. So having core values is extremely important. That is the one. Here's the 1A. Okay. 1A is you got to lead by example. If you want your team to look and be and feel like everything you want it to be, a stable team, a mature group of people, people that you can trust, people that think outside of the box, but they know their limits, right? And I'm actually kind of describing the teams that I've worked on and the teams that I actually really want to see for myself and for my own business. If you want to have a team that can work with autonomy and they understand what their boundaries are, what they can and can't do, then you have to model the way. You have to model the type of behaviors. You have to model the decision-making capability. You have to model your communication. You have to model accountability. You have to model respect. You have to model critical thinking. You have to model discipline. Like you really have to model everything that it is that you want to see happening in your team. And when leaders actually consistently demonstrate these traits, what happens is it begins to set a standard for the entire team to follow. And that is what is absolutely critical. So when we say model the way, that's what we're talking about. We're breaking it down into all of the components that will help you develop your team into becoming what it is that you want. Now, if somebody isn't able to step up and model the type of communication that you need or model accountability, then you know that is not the person for your team. And then you have to adjust accordingly, right? So modeling how you want your team to be is critical. And then you hold them to those core values, right? You hold them to that core value and you don't waver. That's the thing. I mean, there's some things where it might be a little unique, but for the most part, you got to be consistent. If you are not consistent with your team, they're going to learn what boundaries they can cross and what boundaries they can stretch and push. So that's one of the big things. You have to model the way. You have to lead the example. Then the other piece of it is that you have to encourage collaboration. And I'm not talking about kumbaya collaboration. I'm actually talking about working together as harmoniously as possible. One of the things that I often have to help leaders understand is what to do when they have two squabbling employees, when they have employees that just don't ever seem to get along. And the 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 threshold, like the boundary that I had set with my team when it came to this is that there were times where I'd have to sit down with the two people and I'm like, listen, I am not here to manage your relationship. Y'all are adults. I expect you to get along and I expect you to work together. And I would turn around and I would hold them to that expectation. But I didn't get involved in the he said, she said. I didn't get into the drama. I put a stop to it. And if one person wasn't able to figure that out and the other person was, then that one person either wound up doing something stupid and we wound up eliminating them, or they wound up just like leaving on their own. And that's fine, right? The thing about having the kind of team that's functional for you is being able to curate it. And to curate it, which means that you absorb the talent and you eliminate the things that just don't work. Okay. So collaboration is about coming together. It's about honestly forming the right kind of relationships amongst each other. So that way we can share ideas. We can work together to solve problems. And not to mention, we can support one another. See, that's the amazing thing is that when people are winning, ultimately what happens is that there's somebody in the group that does not want to celebrate that person's win. And that's really unfortunate because when everybody sells wins or celebrates wins, they're going to celebrate everybody's wins. And conversely, when somebody has a loss and everybody is cohesive and working together and we work together collaboratively, like we really embrace collaboration in its truest form, what's going to happen is that people are going to support the not so hot moments. They're going to support the no wins that take place. Okay. So when people talk about promoting a culture of teamwork, you have to be very clear on what teamwork is. And if you don't have a clear definition of teamwork, everybody's going to, they're going to assume their own definition of it. If you were to go around in a room in a meeting and you were to ask every single person, what is the one word? What is the most important thing to them in teamwork? What you're going to find is that the same word is not repeated. It's very rarely repeated. Everybody's got a different definition of what they think teamwork is or what they feel like teamwork is. And that's where it gets kind of risky, right? So I've led this exact exercise multiple times in the courses that I facilitate, the classes, the sessions, the executive development programs that I actually contracted to come in and speak on. And when we go around the room, it's a wide variety of things. And then when they come to me, so you might hear things like, communication, or you may hear things like proper planning. You may hear things about, support, mutual support. Like those are things that kind of tend to get called out. But when they get to me, I'll sit there and I'll say competence. Because that is my number one thing. And when it comes to teamwork, that's the thing that when I'm in a team, I need to be around people who are highly competent, right? Because people who are not competent means that I actually wind up absorbing a lot of work, and that's not going to move a team forward. So you'll see very quickly that people have a different description of what teamwork means to them. So if you don't have a clearly defined definition of what teamwork is, something that the whole team can embrace and really kind of understand, then you're going to have people that are just like, well, I'm a great team player. It's like, well, what are you measuring that against? Right? So you have to have something that people can measure against, because when a team feels heard and when they feel valued, and they are more likely to engage and contribute in a very positive manner. But they have to understand what the boundaries are. They have to understand, where their right and lefts are. And lastly, the biggest thing that you need to do is you need to reward people. You need to reward positive behavior. You need to recognize achievement. And it's across the board. Even your most difficult person is doing something fantastic. Believe it or not, they really are. Right? We don't look at it that way, because the only thing that we look at is all the negative stuff, right? And that's the thing, is that when you're looking at a situation, you see a good employee doing something great, you're going to find evidence to that. Conversely, when you are looking at an employee who is not doing so great, guess what? You're going to find evidence to support that. So you have to look at it from both sides, right? And so when you're recognizing and rewarding positive behavior, you have to really kind of open that aperture, especially with the individuals who are most difficult, because believe it or not, they're actually doing stuff that is good too. Okay. So you need to acknowledge and celebrate the efforts of team members who actually embody these positive behaviors, and not as a whole. Yes, you'd have to do it as a whole, but you also have to do it depending on what the behavior is, right? So when you publicly recognize good work and collaboration, therefore starts to reinforce this desired culture and encourages others to follow suit. The leaders that I've known, that I've worked for, that had amazing culture within their team, have done every single one of these things. They've led by example. They've been very clear as to what it is that they expect, and they live up to it. They are not the kind of people that do as I say, not as I do. Okay. That fails. And that's what a lot of folks tend to have, even though they don't realize that they actually do it. All right. They encourage collaboration, which means that they're not going to babysit people. They expect everybody to work together as grown-up adults. So they treat adults like adults. They don't treat them like children, which is a wonderful feeling, because I don't know anybody like reasonable who wants to be treated like a child. I really don't. And they recognize and reward positive behavior. They acknowledge and celebrate the efforts of the people on the team who embody positive behaviors. And that public recognition of good stuff, believe me, it goes a long way. So people tend to really feel like they're contributing, which is amazing. All right, so that is what I have for you. So if you know somebody who's struggling in this area and needs a little boost, right? Please go ahead, like this post, tag him in this post, and share it with somebody that you know could really benefit from this. And I want to take a minute to say thank you so much for joining me today. I will be on here tomorrow, and I have no idea what I'm talking about yet tomorrow, but right now we're kind of like, we got some themed trends going on here. So just stay tuned, because I literally have a lot of stuff planned to do and to talk about. And that's all in relation to building your teams and dealing with difficult people. So if that is you and if you're struggling, would love to have you on. Definitely make sure moving forward that you are asking the questions down below. If I don't see them when we're live, I'll be more than happy to answer them in a DM, or I'll just respond in the messages below. But don't be shy about that. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Hope you all have a really great day.